Welcome back this morning in our Sunday Spotlight, how some of our more unique Christmas traditions started. 3 years ago, author Brian Earl joined us to share a bunch of interesting stories he featured in his book, Christmas Past. The Christmas podcaster just released the follow-up to that book. It's called Of Christmases Long, Long Ago, Surprising Traditions and Stories from Christmas Past. Brian Earl joins me via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Merry Christmas. Thanks for being with us, Brian.
Good morning to you as well, and Merry Christmas.
So tell us about this book. I got a chance to take a look at it. It's some amazing stuff that I'm sure a lot of people tell you this. I didn't know any of this stuff. Tell me why you decided to write book number 2.
Well, Christmas as we know it, as an observance on December 25th, has been around since the 4th century. But most of the things that you think of when you think about Christmas have only been with us for the last several centuries. Or in other words, the vast majority of Christmases throughout history didn't include any of the things you think of when you think of Christmas. So what did it include? How did people celebrate? What did it look like? I wanted to know for myself, so I just decided to dive in, and that's the product of all that is the new book.
Well, and I know that that's also the topic of your podcast as well. So,
Yep.
I was struck, right at the very first thing, the foreword, you begin with, Christmas is the biggest thing there is. Why do you believe that? And I guess the fact that everybody's reading and listening and asking you questions is proof of it, right?
Yeah, the song tells us it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it's also by far the most fascinating. There's really nothing else we do in our culture where we so dramatically change the way that the world looks and the way that we act and the things we want to wear and the media we want to consume, the foods we eat. It's like we cast a spell over the world for about a month and then go right back to the way things were. It's really fascinating, and for every one of the traditions we celebrate, there's a story, and it's worth looking into.
Well, you just said it. So it's about a month that people change it. And that's kind of that traditional today version where that maybe that Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, everyone kicks off, or maybe the Friday after Thanksgiving, everyone kicks off the Christmas season. But that's not how it used to be. I read in the book that the 12 days of Christmas started on Christmas. And before that, there wasn't much merriment to be had, right?
Right. One of the biggest differences between Christmas then and now is when we celebrate it. Nowadays, the Christmas season is the period leading up to Christmas, and it usually starts right after Thanksgiving, like you said. That's because we needed to build a shopping season into the Christmas season. That period is already spoken for, of course, for people who go to church. That's Advent. But you're right, that the Council of Tours in the 4th century, or 5th century rather, established the 12 days of Christmas, a season of merriment that began on Christmas Day and went through the Epiphany. That largely died out around the 18th century and left us with the version we have now.
Now, tell me about the old days of celebrating as well. It was sort of a license. You said, raucous partying was allowed. There was cross-dressing. There was someone called the Lord of Misrule. So it used to be that this was kind of a no-holds-barred party, right?
Exactly. The Christmas we know today is a celebration that families celebrate in the home. It's very child-centric and gift-giving centric. That's an 18th or 19th century creation. Prior to that, it was drunk and disorderly. It was something more akin to our Mardi Gras or Halloween, something community celebrated out in the streets and in the pubs. There was drinking, dancing, gambling, which would normally have been illegal every other time of the year except for Christmas. And you're right, there are all kinds of what we like to call playful misrule or playful misbehaving, which would include cross-dressing, which wasn't necessarily just gender swapping. Laity would dress like the clergy and vice versa. The aristocracy would dress like peasants and vice versa. It was really just a time of role reversal and identity shifting.
Well, so I guess if anyone has one too many glasses of eggnog, they can say, hey, I'm just trying to honor the history of Christmas, Grandma. Tell me about this. St. Nicholas, we all know about him, but right place at the right time is how he ended up in the job.
Yeah, so he was a priest who became a bishop. And this really is true, because the other bishop had died, and the people in Myra, where he lived, said, okay, we need a new bishop. How are we going to decide on the new one? And they said, you know what? The first guy who walks in the door this morning will be the new bishop. And St. Nicholas was known as a very devout and early riser. He happened to be at the right place at the right time, got the job, and the rest is history.
Amazing, amazing. Tell me about some of the foods, because historically, a lot of people are probably going to have that roast beef today or something like that, or on Thursday, I should say. But back in the day, there were some pretty gross things people ate for Christmas.
Yeah, so Things like Christmas pudding, which nowadays is mostly a steamed fruitcake, would a long time ago contain meat and would be encased in animal intestines as a way to keep its shape. There are other things like pheasant pie. So if you imagine a meat pie encased in pastry, but sometimes it would be displayed with the head of the bird sticking out of the pie and the feathers in the back, looking all fancy like that. And even mincemeat. Nowadays we like that. It's kind of like a boozy fruit concoction. Would actually contain meat. So I think I think to our ancestors that might have been appetizing. I think we would turn our nose up at it now.
Only 30 seconds left, Brian. Give me one great fact. If we have to amaze everyone we're with for Christmas, something nobody else at the table is going to know, go.
Well, a long time ago in Wales, there was a tradition known as holming or holly beating, and that is exactly what it sounds like. The last person to wake up on Christmas morning would be subject to a beating with a holly bush by their relatives. And if you've ever seen holly with its spiky leaves, you'd know why you don't want to be on the receiving end of one of those.
Well, there you go. See, everyone's got to behave at Christmas or they'll get a holly beating. You heard it here first. Brian, we so appreciate you coming back on the show. Fascinating stuff in the book. I hope people will check it out. It was a great read. I went through it, and I hope they will as well. And good luck with the podcast. Hopefully, we'll have you back on book number 3.
Thanks very much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Again, Brian's newest Christmas book is called Of Christmases Long, Long Ago, Surprising Traditions from Christmas Past. Look for it at your favorite bookstore. That is CT 25 for this week. CBS Sunday Morning is, of course, coming up next. Have a great rest of your weekend and a Merry Christmas. After that, we'll see you back here in Studio A next Sunday morning.